Hey everyone, Jasper from Amadeus back here again with a brand new style of tutorials. I'm back. I have a new camera, as you might be able to tell, and I have some really exciting new material that I'm excited to share with you all today. So I've been listening to a lot of Skrillex lately. He's one of my favorite artists, and there are some subtle things that he does with sound shaping and sound design that I don't think anybody really knows how to match. I really admire some of his work, and I think it's really subtle. So today I wanted to go over a little bit of how I think he blends, for instance, his kick and his 808s, and a little bit of his kind of subtle mastering and sound shaping techniques that you can probably recreate for free with technology that you already have. So specifically, I wanted to talk about the Erosion plugin, which comes by default with Ableton. You probably know it as just kind of a sound mangling type of plugin that is primarily useful for just kind of creating distorted, grimy, almost bit crusher-esque sounds, but I think it can actually be a really powerful sound shaping tool that you can use actually similarly to something like Oeksound Soothe, kind of as a spectral leveler type of plugin. So I'm going to go over a couple of basic applications here of how we might traditionally be using Soothe. The first example, we have basically a track that I created for the purposes of this demo. I'll play just the kind of build up and then the drop really quick so you can hear what it sounds like. Not that different than a lot of Skrillex tracks might sound. I was kind of trying to emulate him low-key with this track. So kind of the first way that I'm using Erosion here is I'm using it to kind of blend the kick and the 808 together. So here's the group that I have the kick and the 808 in. You'll see there's quite a lot of processing going on here, but one of the most important aspects is that Erosion plugin. So as is, it sounds like this. And without the erosion, it sounds a lot worse. The two elements sound a lot less blended together. And that's even without the really nice kind of gritty properties that the erosion on noise mode, lowish frequency, that the erosion is adding there. You can see that the amount is turned way up for an application like this. Just to kind of highlight what the erosion is doing on a spectral level. Here is a spectrogram, and let's see what it does here. So you can see one big advantage is that the kick and the sub are really full spectrum, and part of that is due to the erosion. Without it, they are less full spectrum and they sound less glued together. So that's kind of the traditional application of erosion that you might see. But I actually wanted to talk about a little bit more of a subtle mastering application of erosion, believe it or not. So I'm actually automating on an erosion instance on the master channel for this drop. So you can see here that erosion amount, it's just basically a simple automation that it is at 0 for most of the track for the buildup. That it basically is leaving the sound unchanged, and then I'm automating it on for the drop. And I'll A/B it so that you can hear what it sounds like. With the erosion, without the erosion rather, it sounds like this. And then with the erosion, it sounds like this. Pretty subtle difference, but I think it makes a pretty big difference that you'll be able to see when I have the when I pull up span and show you what it's doing to the high end. So without it, let's see what I want you to specifically look at the kind of like 6K to 10K to 20K range. So right up here on span. So it's pretty pointy and jaggedy, as you can see. There's a little bit of spectral peaks that are caused by high-end distortion, things like that we would probably expect. But when I turn erosion on, look at what happens. all of a sudden the high end gets a little bit less intense, it's a little bit more under control, and more importantly, it also becomes much more smooth. It almost has a process of adding a little bit of kind of noise on the high end. That's kind of what we think of Erosion as traditionally adding. But in this specific mastering application, it really does a great job of smoothing out the high end in a way that is pretty clean sounding. You can't really tell that it's there for applications like this kind of, I guess, dubstep trap type of drop here. Might be a little bit more hesitant to use it on kind of a future-based drop, like a lot of the stuff that you've probably heard me release. But I just wanted to share this. I would bet dollars to donuts that Skrillex has used this application of Erosion multiple times in his tracks, because his top end is too clean and almost too kind of, it sounds like white noise. It's too clean for him to not be using things like this. So you could also use a plugin like Soothe to basically do a kind of a little bit more of a more fancy way of smoothing out the top end. That's just basically a dynamic EQ that's kind of brings down the peaks depending on how you set it. But I like this application for this genre of music a little bit better. It certainly adds some nice noise, and I'll definitely be using this in a lot of my tracks going forward. So I want to just share this kind of atypical application of a plugin that you probably already have. I will be making use of it, and I hope you found this useful. Thanks a lot, everyone.